Hello. All right, ladies and gentlemen and variations thereof, welcome to Selectives Minisode, just because I felt like putting something up in March. I'm Joe, also known as Jeroic.
And my name is Luther, also known as Darcius.
And this is going to be hopefully a short one and hopefully anywhere near decent. But this is the Vocabucast, because we threw a lot of words at you in the last 13 months and didn't really tell you what they meant. So which one do we want to start with?
You go ahead and you pick.
Okay, let's start with just mantling. I don't know if it was touched on in a particular episode, but mantling is one of the simpler things. It's part of the main plot of Morrowind and Shivering Isles and Knights of the Nine, and it's you walk like them until they walk like you.
It's might be part of Morrowind, but yeah.
I just think of it as part of Morrowind, but yeah, it's possibly what the sort of central mechanic of how the Nerevarine becomes Nerevar, if you look at it one way and not another.
You might want to tell them about the disclaimer.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was going to do that, wasn't I? Since this is just two people sort of thrown together last minute in order to just have content for March, this is very much opinion-based. If you have a differing opinion on any of the words we wind up picking and using, feel free to leave them in the comments. They are probably that way, and I will actually read them. Shocker. And I'll get in there, and if you have a good point, I'll put it fucking somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, so here's hoping this actually works. And yeah, thanks for watching. Okay, so simple mechanics of mantling, though. It's the reason I call it one of the simpler terms is because it is pretty much. Oh, we also both have coughs, by the way.
Terrible.
It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's you perform actions imitative of a divine or spiritual force until you become indistinguishable from it.
And then that you can be however you want to be, I think. I'm not entirely sure about that part.
Well, I think it depends on the thing itself. Like for let's go with Knights of the Nine, because that one's, pretty simple. It's you get the pieces of armor and you fight Umaril. And because Pelinal is a spirit being in addition to a robot, because you're fulfilling his role, which is fight Umaril, you become, in the ways that are important anyway, mythically, you become a new Pelinal. So.
Yep.
Okay, your picture was really still for a second. I wondered if I had fucked up with the connection. All right. Do we want to talk towers for a few minutes?
Sure, we'll talk about the towers. Those are simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the towers are big things. Okay. That's that being the comic relief doesn't work when there's two people. I'm realizing. Nope. It just makes me look like an idiot. So the serious answer to that.
The towers are basically the thing that, or the God, they're the things that hold Nirn together, but they're more than that.
Yeah, I'll approach it from the history lesson standpoint. So you have the first one, which is Adamantine Tower, or Direni Tower, because the Direnis live there now. And that was where convention happened. It was the first structure on Nirn, or Tamriel, or whichever word and idea you're using at the moment. And when the Aldmer, or whoever, when mortal kind, whatever they were at the time, first came to that region of the world, it was already there. And so the other towers, like I guess Walkbrass being Numidium, the White Gold Tower, and Green Sap, Crystal Tower probably especially, were built in imitation of this thing that was made by the gods. And
but remember that, like, Adamantium Tower was the first tower, but didn't stabilize Nirn. The second tower, Red Mountain, it stabilized Nirn. So it needed two towers in order to stabilize Nirn.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's only one tower, it will become unstable and unwind again.
Yep, 2 points to make a line.
So that's basically what the towers do.
Yeah,
they hold up oblivion, so to speak.
Yeah. So the tallness thing might be a metaphor, and we've mentioned the towers before and like the symbolism of eye and things in other episodes, so that ties into it too. They're very simple to explain on a basic level, but like most things in Elder Scrolls lore, the more you dive into it, sort of the more complex it gets.
Yeah, I think they both have tuning forks as well.
Yeah. One thing that I would like to point out, just as a thought, is elves build towers. That's a thing that happens. Like the different elven races have built towers, except for the Dunmer, who sort of co-opted Red Mountain. Humans sort of have Snowthroat, but
humans kind of sort of ish, like unintentionally build towers.
Yeah, but it's not because they're not trying to return to a state of divinity. They don't tend to construct them for themselves. They just sort of happen because humans
are a tower. The Khajiit are a tower.
Yeah, they're taking their asses to the moon. Sorry.
And the Hist might be a tower.
Maybe. Or they might be something completely different.
Or they might be the stone. I have no idea. Oh, yes, stones. The towers need stones.
Yes.
And are powered. If you don't have a stone for a tower, the tower is inactive. It cannot hold up an earth.
Yeah, or really do much of anything else aside from be just what it physically is. Like, obviously without the Stone of White Gold Tower, which is, spoiler alert, destroyed at the end of Oblivion, although it's sort of replaced by the statue of Akatosh, the tower is still physically there, but it is a different thing. It's a tower with a small T instead of a big T.
Since the Amulet of Kings was the stone of the White Gold Tower, and it was destroyed at the end of Oblivion, it is now inactive, actually. So
yeah, okay, the tower is inactive and the statue does something else.
It reinforces the covenant.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, and they've been getting, just as sort of an arc, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, throughout the last few games, towers have been just shutting down. When you free the Heart of Lorecast at the end of Morrowind, that shuts down Red Tower. End of Oblivion shuts down White Gold. You hear rumors that Green Sap is shut down. So it's possibly an arc, or it might just be coincidence, or meh.
Yep.
I guess we'll find out in like 20 years when by the time they've released 4 more games.
Crystal Lake Law has been destroyed.
Oh yeah, that's destroyed by Skyrim, which
the Daedric invasion. Yeah, yep. it was destroyed actually in Oblivion.
Oh, in Oblivion. Okay, there's a book confirming it in Skyrim.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So, do you want to jump to Kalpa now, since we've started talking about world stuff?
Let's go for Kalpa, the confusing one.
Yeah, like we can't just be sitting here like taking it easy. So Kalpa, the simple version, that's like it's the lie you'll understand sort of version, to put it in Pratchett terms, is the cycle of basically the reset of the world. The start is the beginning, and time is cyclical instead of with a start and stop at convention and whatever end.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a cycle. It's a cycle of oh god, how would you? The best way to put it is kind of Ragnarok almost, because like I believe in the Norse mythology, Ragnarok is the end of time, but it's also the beginning of the next cycle. Am I wrong about that, or am I right? I don't know.
I'm actually thankfully I'm literally an expert at this. Yeah, hey, of all people, when Ragnarok, I just have a water bottle, but cool, doink. For Ragnarok, it's after the North was sort of Christianized a bit. The religion changed. Initially, Ragnarok was just going to be the end of everything, and then everybody dies, and then the world is destroyed. The end. But then it sort of became. This is kind of, if I recall right, it's sort of a Snorri thing, because Snorri was a Christian. He sort of Christianized the mythology so that instead of being in conflict with his own religion, he sort of tried to reconcile them by saying this was like the chaos time before like the Adam and Eve story. And so it's sort of like with like,
so it's almost like the beginning, the dawn era, sort of, instead of the.
It's actually a really good way to put it. It's situated in there with magic and shit.
But yeah, so basically the Kalpa ends when Alduin eats the world and it begins again when the convention, when basically when the heart of Lorcan is shot into Red Mountain and grows to Red Mountain. So that is or when Ariel rips out Lorcan's heart. Or Trinimac rips out Lorcan. Wow, god damn it. Trinimac rips out Lorcan's heart. That is when time starts again.
Yeah. It's basically, the stop, and then the start, and then the stop, and then the start. And each Kalpa is the world that happens. And each one, and this is kind of left to interpretation. So this is go back to that disclaimer. This is all kind of opinion based. They're sort of different, but they're also sort of the same. Like you hear things sometimes about different things being remnants from previous Kalpas, like the Drew or Dreg or whatever you prefer to say, being.
The Draco, I call them. The Dro.
That's probably how you're supposed to say it, because they're underwater. But yeah, either way, like they're supposedly from a previous Kalpa. So sometimes stuff gets left over. Sometimes things are weird and different. Possibly sometimes things are very much the same.
Apparently the Aedra can remember the last Kalpa.
Yeah, so...
The previous Daedric Lords definitely remember. They're not even part of Nirn, so...
Yeah, they're outside of the whole thing, so...
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, if you wanted to see it this way, and I don't, but you could, it could be a way of saying, oh, yeah, this is inconsistent, but that's because it wasn't that way in this Kalpa. It was that way in the last Kalpa, which is when the game you played happened.
Some have even said that Lig is a previous Kalpa.
Okay, so yeah, so, you'll definitely see stuff that might seem out of place, and that might be why. It might be in its wrong cycle.
Also, for those who don't know, Lig is from the Mythic Dawn commentaries. So, just FYI, that's where you can find mentions of Lig, and also look for some of Mojo's stuff. He's got a lot of Lig.
Half of Team Chris. Yeah, since this was a podcast about explaining terms that we just threw at you and didn't explain, I nearly just threw more at you.
And explain more things. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I nearly just left that one. Thanks for catching that. Okay, so really quick, easiest one on here. Mononaut, Imperial Spaceman. Boosh.
Yep. So the Remen Mononauts that were created during the Remen era of the Empire. And yeah, they just fly gigantic spaceships called, what are the spaceships called? Mononauts or are they Remenauts? I think they're Remenauts.
I actually don't remember the word for the spaceship. I just remember the word for, like, Mononaut.
I'm pretty sure they're called Remenauts. I could be wrong about that, and somebody should correct me on that if I'm wrong.
People should look it up.
Because I always thought the Mononauts were the actual spaceships. But
yeah, I always thought they were the dudes themselves.
That's possible.
Yeah.
And then you also have sunbirds. Sunbirds are the Altmer versions of the void ships, and they're giant glowing birds.
Yeah, they're birds made of sun.
Of solidified sun. Yep.
And they're really cool. You should look up some of the. You should look up Tiber Septim's sword meeting with Cyrus the Restless, because that's where you get to see one in action. So definitely look that up.
And I still can't actually figure out what it looks like in my head. And that might just be my fault, or that could just be MK being weird when he's writing.
I think it might be deliberately open to interpretation by the reader.
I think so too, because that's the way MK is.
Yeah, because it's, the whole open source lore thing. Here's one, and this one, the pronunciation of this is something I've actually talked with Kirkbride about and disagree with him on, is just the letters AE, both caps. He says E because he's actually technically right, but I say it I because it sounds cooler.
Technically E, but I like I too.
Yeah, the diphthong AE is pronounced E. I failed Latin, but I did take it once. So this one's a bit of a doozy because I see it used in a couple different contexts. The one that I saw most recently, I think it was, I want to say it's from the love letter, but I don't have it in front of me right now. It's the thing about lunar currency going toward its aligned eye.
Okay.
Which makes me think, but I also hear it in sort of like your I. So that context sounds like soul or equivalent, but then this other context, the first one, makes me think less that way and more of like the grander sense of like the idea of like God is the one who says I am, and I think that's the am that everyone is, and you don't realize it.
Well, like I always thought the I was is. So you know when you say like
form of to be.
Yeah, when you say like Oriel I Akatosh, you're saying that they're both the same basically, or they're connected in some way.
Yeah.
And then there's also like apparently I as in the ego of the individual. So each individual has an I.
Yeah.
So there's kind of two separate meanings for it, but they're kind of similar in a way too.
Yeah, they're related. They all seem to be. They basically all seem to be related to the. I was about to yell out my window. That would not have been professional at all, because we're so professional on this podcast. But yeah, they all seem to be variants of the word to be, of like the am of a god, the is of you. You know, this is that. So yeah,
That
I mean,
makes sense for I am because it's a to be concept. Although I am, I think, is linguistic and not necessarily like saying that I exist, and the other side, and then that this is saying I don't exist. That doesn't work for me. I think it's linguistically I am said adjectives. I am not said adjectives. But we're getting way off track. So
well, yeah, and that's the thing on that is people have spent hundreds of years debating that word just to be, partially because of, you know, the whole transubstantiation thing in Catholicism, because there is no word for to be in Hebrew or Aramaic. So a lot of languages don't even have this concept, which is interesting, but that might be a can of worms, because we don't have we're trying to keep this kind of short because it's just the two of us, and yeah. So do we want to do Jill?
Ah, yes, the Jills, the matron dragon.
Yep. And I caused some horrible confusion during Skyrim's development because I didn't realize how to internet. So the thing that the Jills are there, they're sort of like the fixers of time when it gets broken. So when something, like when a dragon break happens and the timeline goes all fucky, and then it comes back together. Yeah, they sort of have to pick up the pieces and reconcile what did and didn't happen, and they're not that great at it sometimes. Sometimes they're fine.
They knit it back together.
Yeah, they knit. It's cute.
That's my way of saying it. They weave it back together, the fabric of time.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have to like make little like edits, kind of like. Apparently, this is just my own wild like speculation, but in the second game, or in a Daggerfall, if you give the Numidium to Manny Marco and it manages to ascend to godhood, the Jills have to make a copy of Manny Marco, a temporal copy, and put them in. And that's where the one in Oblivion is just a temporal version of Manny Marco. So he's a copy of a copy, basically.
Yeah, so he's already, which is why he's so weird and like kind of weak, is because even though he's a god, he's not really. And
not that one.
Yeah, that one isn't. Part of him is. They're all Manny Marco, because the Jills will sometimes fuck up. And the confusion happened because, like dragons, they're, you know, related very closely to Akatosh. And one thing that I don't know if this is a thing for everybody, but to me, they always seem to come off as a female aspect thing, where all dragons.
Yeah. Well, they're called the matron dragons. So
yeah, exactly.
So in some way, dragons don't really reproduce. So
yeah, they don't. But they have a female aspect, where just the dragons that we encounter in Skyrim have a male aspect. So it's just kind of a thing for thought, like these sort of non-tangible, non-physical beings
exist in a quantum state, maybe. I always imagine them to be little tiny dragons, just itty bitty dragons.
Just like atom dragons.
Yeah, like little tiny neutron dragons.
Yeah. Yeah, either way, it's just a thought. They're the feminine aspect, possibly, and they're less physical than regular dragons. And okay, I feel like we can probably knock out one more, and it's a doozy. So I'm thinking Dracochrysalis.
Oh God.
Yeah, I said it was a doozy.
Time bubble.
Yeah, it's an Altmer thing, where magic and magicka are not the same thing. Magicka is what you use in the game, and it's represented usually by a little blue bar, and it's the way that mortal people can influence the world around them and cause it to do things that it wouldn't do in the absence of magic, like fire appearing out of nowhere despite thermodynamics not allowing that in the real world. Magicka makes that not disallowed. So magic is something kind of a level beyond. It's more grand. It's sort of a higher tier of magicka, sort of the pure stuff of like Starlight and Magnus and his essence. So Dracochrysalis is there because it's very hard to get magic. Magic is tough because it's far away and you have to use magicka to get to it. This is something, if you can get the 3rd edition pocket guide to the Empire, they mention this, it's nearly impossible. So Dracochrysalis is there to sort of keep magic from degrading into magicka when it comes to the mortal plane or to Nirn.
Oh, is that what happens? Oh, so it's like pure form of magicka, or magicka is a less pure form of magic.
Yeah, it's basically just kind of like degraded.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, that was just something that was in the pocket guide. I have that laying around because I bought Oblivion day one. But
Altmer sought to focus on Dracochrysalis or keeping elder magic bound before it could change into something lesser.
Yeah,
that's exactly. That's in the Numanta Intercept. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's sort of related to the Altmer's like religious and philosophical ways of what, like, the mythic and the magic and the ancient were better, and everything since is a degradation, and they're trying to keep that degradation from spreading to magic itself whenever they can get their hands on it, which is apparently very rare.
Okay, so yeah, Dracochrysalis is a time bubble, but it's used for a specific thing. Although they also trapped Numidium in a Dracochrysalis as well.
That's true, but he's also a tower, and now we're getting back into the jargon thing. So either way, yeah.
Another bag of chips, but we've already went over Numidium, so we should know this stuff already.
Watch the Numidium episode and the Coda episode, and the other 11.
And all the other episodes, really.
Yeah, they're fun. But yeah,
I haven't seen a good portion of
it. But yeah, the thing, Dracochrysalis, I've seen mostly in the context of preserving magic.
But it's not just Altmer, because it also shows up in the Shoni Etta, which is interesting. You know what the Shoni Etta is?
I've seen.
It's not done. Yeah, it's little
bits and pieces,
but it's the story of Remen, basically.
Yeah.
Remen Cyrodiil. And
so hype.
They call Remen Cyrodiil like ad semboli aurbex, ad semboli ehlnokhan, na-sen-ae-mantella, dracochrysalisanu. So
that's a lot of really important words all tied together.
And I have no idea what they all mean.
All right. Wait, okay. I was saying let's do one more. Can you copy and paste that into the chat really quick? And I'll just.
God. Okay, one sec.
Oh, do you not have it like set right there? Shit. Vamping. So yeah, Raymond's a big deal. Oh, here we go. So these. Oh man, I hope I can remember to send this to Team Chris so they can leave it in the description. But because I'm not uploading this, I don't know how. So, well, dracochrysalisanu. This all sounds sort of like elfy.
Yeah, it's very well. It's ehlnokhan actually. Draco. That is ehlnokhan, I believe.
Yeah. So okay, that would sound elfy. But
yeah. Well, I mean, ehlnokhan is Altmer is derived from ehlnokhan, but ehlnokhan is like, I don't know, pure language sort of.
Yeah. So if you're going back again to purity, Altmer and purity and just general, like, the parabolic Kalpa should be an episode too. That should be an episode, and that's, yeah. You know what? Fuck. these are going to
Because
be.
there's another thing about Draco too. It's one of the walking ways.
Is it? I was never an
Apparently.
expert at those. To sidestep this sentence in a language I don't know, full with words that I don't understand, and
Yeah.
to sidestep the fact that I don't understand that, let's actually really quickly just define walking ways, and then we can call it a night and hope that the audience forgets that thing that I forgot. So the walking ways are means to transcendence and ascendancy.
Paths to immortality, basically.
Mm-hmm. And oddly enough, one of them is mortal death.
Really?
Or maybe it isn't, and
Yes.
I've just fucked up a line from
I
the
don't know,
lessons.
because they all seem to have like a specific like.
Oh yeah, the fourth one, dead, the fourth walking way. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So they're different things that you can do. We've probably mentioned a bunch of them over the course of the last several episodes, whether we've pointed them out as that or not, where you can stop being immortal and you can either transcend to just regular godhood is a thing, and I love that. Or you can go even beyond that to like stepping outside of the cycle and like just being beyond the kind of the troubles of the world, basically, and just no longer needing to be a part of it. So that's kind of a big concept with a short definition that's simple if you keep it simple enough to be technically wrong. But so yeah, I mean, this was by no means exhaustive. I'm gonna try and remember to tell the people who actually know how to upload stuff to link the made up word roundup.
We got one more.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, one more.
What do we got?
Impossible point.
Oh, yep, we got a pasta point. So
And that one's fun.
bye, everyone. No, not really. We should actually give it a crack.
Okay, so you want me to give it a crack?
Yeah, you go first, and we'll see.
I'm gonna give it a crack here because I don't really know exactly what it is, but here's my thoughts. So you have a pasa point, you have an impasa point. And a pasa point is a point that is possible within the context of a timeline. So this happened at this date. That's a pasa point.
Mm-hmm.
An impasa point is a point in time that has no point in time. So an impasa point might be convention, where it is the beginning of time, or it is beginning of linear time rather.
Mm-hmm.
And since it's the beginning of linear time, you can't put it on a specific point specifically in time. So it's an impasa point. It's a point that's impossible to actually like put on a man-made calendar or something of that sort. That's pretty much the best I can do for that one.
Better than anything I could have come up with. Yeah, that's one of those ones where, yeah, that might be something that I don't know if it had a point and if it did specifically what it was, but it was one of those words that I saw and always kind of meant to be like, oh yeah, I should try and figure out what that means, and then never did. So I'm actually kind of stumped.
Yeah, I mean, so any dragon break that occurs, anything that happens within that dragon break is most likely an impasa point because time's just going all over the place.
Yeah.
You got multiple timelines happening, and eventually they converge into one timeline. But since something that occurred in another timeline is now like an actual part of history, then where do you put it on an actual like date or calendar or something like that? Yeah, that's an impasa point basically. When time fucks up, you don't know where to put anything.
Yeah, I mean that sounds reasonable based on just like, I guess, the context and like the word, like the construction of it.
Michael okay. Kirkbride, if I'm wrong, Michael Kirkbride, don't slay me.
Yeah, if we're wrong about any of these, just generally speaking to the audience, like I said at the beginning, just drop a comment for what you think some of these words mean. If you have a favorite Elder Scrolls word that we didn't get to and you think you have a definition for it, or you want to ask what we think the definition is, again, comments. Sorry if this was ass, but there was just not, it's just basically it's the month after the CodaCast. Most of us are recovering from that in one way or another. Some of us have been eaten by the others. That was a thing that had to happen. We had to call the herd. So next month, hopefully, we'll have a real episode for you. aside and yeah, I'm gonna try and get people to link the made-up word Roundup, and I'm gonna try and remember to leave that ehlnokhan sentence in the description. And if I don't remember to do either of those things, I will leave them in the comments myself for you to find. And so I hope you have a good month or however many weeks until the April cast. Bye, Internet.
Bye bye.
Where's the stop button? Oh.